I was 16 years old when I started getting letters from colleges. Dear Dee, thank you for sending in your highlight reel. This was thanks to my dad, who had been moonlighting as my personal athletic PR rep. He had recorded my high school basketball games with a camcorder and produced a highlight reel, VHS, of my best plays. He then made copies of these tapes and sent them out to colleges around the country. My dad was on a mission, determined to see me play in college, dreaming of what he called the 4-year free ride. My memories from those years are highlighted by collecting trophies, breaking my high school scoring record, and long car rides home after games. It's the car rides I remember the most. I knew how they'd go depending on how many points I scored. Over 20, and I'd be in high praises. Less than 10, and I'd face a lecture, or worse, total silence. You see, my dad kept a spreadsheet where he meticulously tallied my points and ongoing scoring average. And it was my sole job to be sure that my name was at the top of the local city paper's top scorers list, which came out weekly, and that my average stayed above 20 points per game. For the love of the game? No. It was for the love of my dad. My high school career ended abruptly with a fast break, a pivot, and a pop just before the state championship tournament. ACL tear. In an instant, every Division I college that had been recruiting me dropped me. Fortunately, there was a small D3 school in Chicago that still wanted me to play on their team and pay the tuition. Sorry, Dad. By the time I got to college, reality hit hard. I was no longer the big fish, and my cheering section was gone. And I struggled to find the internal drive that is required at that level of competition. By the end of my junior season, I was done. And I quit just after the last game. And though I felt relief, in a way, to be done, I didn't feel resolved. I felt defeated and lost. All those years, all the injuries, for what? The highlight reel I had worked so hard to perfect was never just about showcasing my skills on the court. It was about proving my worth according to my dad's script. Now, I believe many of us fall into that same predicament, where we measure our worth according to a standard that isn't even our own. And so today, I'm talking about how by healing our reel, we can break free from the pressures handed down to us and instead choose to define success by our own measure of what truly motivates and fulfills us. Okay, so a number of years after graduating from college, I was living in Portland, Oregon with my wife and our then twin babies. One day, a large delivery truck rolls up in front of our little 2-bedroom ranch, and the driver unloads 4 or 5 large boxes. They're from my dad. I open a box and look inside to see my trophies. Now, by this time, I had long abandoned the whole basketball star identity. In fact, I was still deeply bitter about the whole experience. Looking at my trophies was like I was staring at his trophies. And back came the flood of spreadsheets and newspaper clippings and car rides. And so I did the thing that made the most sense to me at the time. I posted an ad online. Free basketball trophies. And at the end of the week, they were gone. And so was the toxic highlight reel of my youth. Or so I thought. As I navigated my career, I found myself falling into an all too familiar pattern. I said yes to jobs that paid well but drained my energy. I chased impressive sounding titles that meant absolutely nothing. And I became an expert at silencing my own feelings and needs. And for years, I endured deep cycles of depression where the only thing I could come up with was that I was either not trying hard enough or I was just broken. Chasing the real left me exhausted and jaded and numb. But how did this all start? Okay, well, it didn't start with basketball. It came well before me. In my family, like in so many others, resilience and ambition were passed down. My grandparents immigrated from Ecuador when my mom was a teenager. They worked in factories. My grandmother never learned how to drive, and they struggled to bridge the language and culture gaps. And my dad's Italian-American family of grocers and plumbers were also no strangers to hard work. Together, my parents became entrepreneurs, and they achieved what many would consider the American dream through grit and determination, and as they put it, sacrifice. So when I became the first in my immediate family to graduate from college, I felt this huge pressure to live up to this vision of success that was expected of me, the one they had paved the way for. When we grow up with hardworking families who expect us to be our best, we can forget who we're living for. And so we succumb to highlight reel living, where we chase the next shiny milestone without ever stopping to ask ourselves, is this what I want? And we all have them, our little or big reels that imprison us, encasing us in a shiny, fragile exterior. For many, it's not making the team or landing the big job. It might be keeping up with being the Pinterest perfect parent or having an Insta-worthy social life. Because when we feel the pressure to prove ourselves, we set up the tripod and we start performing. We put on our mask, we settle for surface-level connections, and we miss out on real, meaningful experiences. We diminish our value and our power by overvaluing the opinions of others. I have been there. And so I know that there's no easy way to break this pattern, but I do believe there's a way. And so right now I'm going to share with you 4 steps that I have taken in my own life to break the pattern of highlight reel living. And these are steps that I believe anyone can take, no matter where you are in your journey. So the first step is to reflect. So let's take a moment right now and think about our own lives. In what ways have you felt weighed down by the expectations of others? Parents, partners, bosses, siblings, friends, society at large. Maybe you've poured yourself into a goal that your heart wasn't into. Or maybe you've bent over backwards trying to win someone over or fit into a social circle that didn't actually have your back. Or perhaps you've followed a partner's dream only to discover that you've sidelined your own passions and lost a sense of who you are in the process. It's important to face these truths head on, because what we find is that when we finally lower our masks, it's not the judgment of others that holds us back the most, obviously. It's our own reflection, the internalized critic that we're bowing down to. And so reflection is really about becoming someone who is brave enough to see and accept the full person behind the reel. And with this awareness, we can take the next step, and that is to explore. When we make decisions based on what we'll add to or take away from our highlight reel, we unconsciously put on blinders that stifle curiosity and spontaneity and the feeling of aliveness until we wake up one day and we ask ourselves, when did I stop feeling alive? Have you ever felt that? Our highlight reels trap us in a comfortably numb monotony where we become more like robots than humans, obedient to whatever it is that we think is expected of us. Breaking free from this cycle requires cutting through that fog by exploring new ways of being. So it could be something simple like changing your hairstyle, or taking a nap in the middle of the day without guilt, or it can be diving into a passion project that never seemed practical, or discovering a new hobby that doesn't have an end goal. Exploring is about reconnecting with those parts of ourselves that we abandon when fear and obligation hold us back. It's about rediscovering that there's a whole world beyond the highlights, full of depth and wonder and possibility. And so with this momentum, we can take the next step, and that is to activate. Living for someone else makes us passive. I was rebuilding my career and life after suffering a series of setbacks catalyzed by leaving my dad's company, which I was working for, shocker, because I still desperately wanted his approval. And I was sitting in a therapist's office one day, and she goes, "Okay, well, now that you're free, what do you want?" And I went silent. I had spent my whole life expecting to someday lead the family business because that's what I had been told, and it's what I wanted to believe. But I always knew deep down that there was something else out there for me. But I had spent so long chasing that I couldn't even recognize my own ambitions. And as badly as I wanted to know then and there, okay, what's my passion? Like, what's my calling and my purpose? I learned very quickly that what I needed more immediately was to find work so that I could support my family. I needed to start doing. Activation isn't about waiting around for our one true purpose or our calling to magically reveal itself or for fear to vanish before knowing it's time to take action. It's about embracing the unknown and building momentum one determined step at a time. And this really leads us to the last step and the most important step of releasing the real, which of course is letting go. And I should tell you all now that unfortunately it doesn't all happen at once. None of these steps do. It happens over and over again as we're faced with triggers, like seeing someone else get a promotion, or hearing about a friend who is traveling the world, scrolling our feeds and seeing people with seemingly effortless lives and endless amounts of cash. I know that I need to heal my real when I fall back into this chasing, striving, controlling energy, when I become critical of my home, my family, my body. It's the shame that keeps us white-knuckling our precious reals. But to release them, we've got to let go. We need to let go of the comparing, the tallying, the self-blame for decisions we did or didn't make. We need to let go of the person we thought we were going to be by now. We need to let go of the endless pushing and proving and scrambling to fulfill some vision, any vision, that is not our own. So my twins are now 13. And wouldn't you know, they play basketball. And aside from coaching a few of their teams early on, my role is mainly taxi, cheering from the sidelines, and occasionally showing them a new move when invited to do so. I have a personal positive words only policy from the stands. I do not single them out with advice unless they ask for it. And car rides home are for relaxing to music, whatever they want to play, within reason. I've got it all figured out. Okay, well, sometimes in the heat of the game, I catch myself slipping. It's one game in particular. The game starts, and both of my girls start on the bench, which I'm cool with because there's a lot of talent on their team, and no one needs to start every game. Well, 5 minutes goes by, and one of my girls gets subbed in. Cool. Another 5 minutes passes, and my other is still sitting on the bench. We get to like 12 minutes in, and my eyes are darting from the clock to the coach to the bench. And I'm willing her to see my child. And when that didn't work, I pulled out my phone and texted my wife to complain. I can't believe this. Is she blind? Maybe I should say something? And my wife calmly texts back, yeah, I feel you. It can be hard to watch, but remember, this is her journey, not yours. And in an instant, the fog cleared. Of course, it is not my job to determine how much playing time my kids get. My job is to hold space for them to have their own experiences, to succeed, to fail, to learn. See, when we release our highlight reels, we're not just liberating ourselves. We are releasing ownership of our children's journeys too. Resisting the urge to control their experiences and their outcomes, who they are and who they become. Releasing my highlight reel has been one of the greatest challenges of my life. And it has also been one of the most rewarding journeys. And it's not easy letting go, but it is the path to real healing.